and welcome to Assembly Audible. I'm Jennifer Pierce, Multimedia Editor with Assembly Magazine. We are recording live from the Assembly Show in Rosemont, Illinois. Joining me today from the Community Hub at the show is Sammy Obara, partner with Honsha. Sammy, welcome to Assembly Audible.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
I know we talked a little bit before we started recording, and we both have some connection to Japan, and I just wanted to say hajimemashite, yoroshiku onegai shimasu.
Hajimemashite, dozo yoroshiku onegai shimasu.
Yeah, so I lived in Japan for a few years, and I'm very excited to have you on the show, and I love talking about the culture, and yeah, it's just really exciting for me, so thank you so much.
Thank you. I lived in Japan for 3 years. But it was so long ago, most of my Japanese is already gone.
I can relate. It's been over 10 years since I lived there. I was much better when I came home. I suppose it's like any skill. When you're not using it, you know, it gets rusty.
Yes, exactly.
For sure. When I go back, though, it's the process of understanding again and then gradually being able to speak again is really interesting.
Yes, you gotta get your hearing a little bit familiarized again with the sounds.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to dive into some of these questions. I went to your presentation yesterday, really enjoyed it. So I guess just briefly, tell our audience, what is Kaizen?
Yes, well, Kaizen is continuous improvement for short. But Kaizen requires meeting the purpose, the first thing, and the purpose has to be improving safety, improving quality, or eliminating waste. And there are 7 types of wastes. So for short, Kaizen is a mindset and not an event, as it's mostly known as. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's excellent. Okay, so Lean and Kaizen have always been recognized as a methodology for manufacturing. But what are some areas outside of manufacturing that you have implemented Lean?
That is true. About 30 years ago, I think most companies that were implementing Lean were in manufacturing, and a lot of our clients with Honsha were automotive, auto parts, and in that industry, in that sector. About 20 years ago, we saw a migration. There were a lot of healthcare companies, organizations like hospitals, labs, with more interest in Lean. And nowadays we see a lot of government agencies, even entertainment. We have one of the largest broadcast channels, TV stations in Brazil as one of our clients. The zoo in Victoria, Australia, San Diego zoos, they are all implementing, and we've been part of it.
That's amazing. I laughed yesterday during your presentation because you were talking about that you can apply Kaizen to your daily life. And you gave the example of people neglecting that 1 penny on the floor. And I said, that's me. I've been neglecting the 1 penny on the floor. And then I started to think about all the instances in my past where all those pennies that I've neglected. So I'm sort of joking, but also seriously, I was like, oh, I understand when you gave that example. And I'm excited to see if I can think of ways to apply it to my life, possibly. Yeah, so I want to know a little bit more about what is it like in the field, and also what kind of structure and resources does it require to be applied in organizations? So you've got the theory, the methodology, so what's the next step when you try to apply it?
So the popular belief is that we need a lot of resources, we need a lot of effort, we need to mobilize people, and that makes people postpone the starting of a Kaizen implementation.
Right.
But that's one great example I have in mind is when I went to Africa, Mombasa, Nairobi, and some other places, East Timor, places where they have very little technology, sometimes no computer, no automation, not even electricity in some cases. And they implemented Kaizen in such a masterful way. You know, they could use the thinking, the way of eliminating waste, making sure that waste will never come back, making sure that your solution can be permeated to other processes, that sometimes not even high-tech companies, the top-notch companies, world-class companies here in the US cannot.
I would imagine that as you were talking, I was thinking about when I lived in Japan, and I was always so impressed that they don't waste food there. And when you eat rice, and I'm making generalizations obviously, but they don't leave even a single piece of rice in the bowl. And so I was thinking about, we could really use some Kaizen methods probably in the food industry in the United States, you know?
Yes. You know, when you were a child, in my case, my mom always said mottainai. You're familiar with mottainai?
Yeah.
Yes. If you leave one grain of rice, you're being not only wasteful, of course,
Yeah.
but you are disrespectful to the person to the entire chain that was
Yes.
involved in planting that, in nurturing, in taking care of it, in packaging, delivering it, cooking.
Yes.
And you're being disrespectful to so many people.
Yeah.
And Japanese parents always say, mottainai, you have to eat every single grain of rice
Yes.
in your bowl.
There are so many funny instances I could think of. Actually, I want to tell one really quick story while I have you here. And I mean, this is maybe not the most positive light, but it was so funny. It's such a huge learning curve. So I went to Japan. I worked in a preschool when I was 24. I didn't know anything. But I went to Japan. I lived in Tokyo. I just fell in love. And I knew I am going to live here. I loved everything about it. And I just was so surprised. Anyways, I worked in a preschool. And I didn't know about separating garbage. So there they have moeru gomi, and moenai gomi, which gomi is trash that you cannot burn, right? So there's 3 different compartments for recycling. Anyways, long story short, I didn't even see it. I don't even know what world I was living in. I just didn't have the eyes or the perspective to observe things. And there they ask you to learn by observing, right? So I worked in this preschool, and I had just been throwing all my trash just randomly and mixing it, not following the procedures, right? And no one told me. I don't know if they felt it was rude to say something or they expected me to learn by watching. Anyways, I went to work the next day, and all my trash from the day before was sitting on the desk in the teacher's room. I was mortified, but you know what I learned? So there were several other instances I have where, it was such a steep learning curve, but there are so many aspects of the culture that I carry with me and apply every day. So I'm so appreciative for, even though some of those lessons were hard and humbling, I'm very appreciative for what I learned when I lived there. But anyways, that's
world.
a little, what?
Yes, it's a different world.
Totally
Yes.
different world. So, okay, so let me see. Okay, well, I guess this would be sort of retracing the steps, but okay, so when you go into a facility and you're about to start doing your work, or you begin, what are some of the reactions that you first see? How do people respond? And then also, I wondered, what does it look like when you're investigating the root cause? I guess I'm interested to learn more about some of the problems that arise when you try to implement your work, if that makes sense.
Well, starting with the last question, the root cause is only known if you go to what we call Genchi Genbutsu. Genchi Genbutsu means you can only understand what's really going on if you go to the real place where it's happening, and then you get the real facts. And once you have that, then we have a process of asking why until we get to the root cause. And that process might take a while because you have to prove or disprove that you're going in the right direction. But the reaction that we usually get when we bring something like Kaizen is that we are already good enough. We don't need to bring in another thing, another work, another job. I'm already too busy. So there's always a little pushback until we can show some results. And maybe the results are very small in one single process for one single person, and then it becomes our job to propagate that, to make sure everybody can see that, and then you start lowering resistance. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So when is the best time to start a Kaizen implementation?
Well, the best time is long gone. There's, yes, it's way gone. Now, if you ask me for the second best time, then the second best time is today. And we might just, leave the second time alone and just ignore it. But there is no guarantees that the third time will come. So if we miss this one, maybe the competitor will take that chance and will replace us. So it's very dangerous for us to be waiting until we have all the resources, until we're ready, until we have time, because Kaizen can bring you enough resources, enough time if you start eliminating all the waste that is in your scope of work.
A word just popped into my head when you were talking. I feel like one key word is commitment, right? It takes a true commitment, and I guess, you know, you have to be invested in the process, right? So it's kind of a balancing act between a process and a thing. I don't know, I think maybe it's just kind of hard and there are a lot of words in Japanese that don't have a direct translation into English, right? Every now and then, actually, I'll say a word, like, for example, mendokusai, or something like that, where it's like, we have a phrase or a set of words, but it's not the exact translation or nuance, so maybe that is somewhat what makes Kaizen intimidating for people. I don't know.
That is true. And Kaizen is one of those words. You know, it's difficult for us to replace it with some American or Western word. It's almost like sushi, right? We never go to a place and ask for sushi by its description. It's the name, because it has a lot to do with
kanji.
Yes.
Because it has kanji instead of the alphabet, probably is maybe the root problem of that. I don't know, but yeah, it's so fascinating. I just love the culture so much. I could talk about it all day long. So I just want to make sure I got all of my I think we covered most of my questions. So I was really interested yesterday, closing your presentation. You asked the audience, you know, would you be interested in trying this, or what do you think that it would get a company with a lot of money to invest in this or to try it? And you said your closing remarks is that it would be very challenging, and maybe even challenging specifically in the US. I wondered, you know, why? Is it more challenging here to get people to try it than other countries, or what made you say that to close your presentation?
You know, the U.S. is so rich, so prosperous. There is this notion that we have this abundance of resources. And whenever you see that, there's very little interest in improving, and much less sense of urgency in changing the way we are doing. And we see, you know, other countries, and many times the other countries are much poorer. We always think those are the people who need. And if you go to those countries, they want it. They know that this is a matter of survival. For the U.S., we still have, you know, a long ways until we realize we either do that now, or some other countries will come here, will inundate our markets with their products, and we are losing the competitive edge day by day.
Right. Unfortunately, I do feel as though we are wasteful here. And in some degrees. All right, well, thank you so much for the conversation. Is there anything that you would like to leave our audience with or close with today before we finish the podcast?
You know, as you said, your commitment is so important.
Yes.
But commitment is one part of setting your priorities. When Kaizen is a priority, you get more committed to it. And for that to become a priority, I think people need to be better educated in what Kaizen is and the power and the benefits of it.
Right.
So, yes, it's right there. Commitment and priority, those should be, you know, top in our list.
Okay, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation yesterday. I'm so happy you could make time for this conversation today. If our audience wants to learn more about you or your work with Honsha, what should they do?
Well, they can go to honsha.org, and not only will they see what we do, but they'll have the opportunity to see the EDM, our Executive Development Mission, bringing people to Japan twice or 3 times a year. Yeah, you're invited already.
I would love to go.
We just finished one this Sunday, you know, just this past Sunday.
I would love that.
The next one is going to be in April, so please sign up. But we have some other programs, and hopefully people will be able to see and join.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Assembly Audible. For more insights on assembling discrete parts into finished products and the people behind it all, visit our website, assemblymag.com. I'm Jennifer Pierce, Multimedia Editor with Assembly Magazine, signing off from the Assembly Show. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.